Hey there, folks. I'm here to talk to you about a wonderful little product I created called Taco Truck, which is used for creating custom panels for different joysticks and whatnot. Instead of like trying to fiddle with GIMP or Photoshop or whatever, this gives you a somewhat precise way of doing it, albeit the program is still very new and it's not perfect, and it's lacking a little bit in the intuitiveness department. Uh, in fact, I've kind of recorded these videos out of order, so you're going to hear me say a lot of the same stuff in the next video where I show you like the basic way of like the intended work path for creating custom panels. But what I'm going to show you now is just the basic controls of the software. So, first of all, new will always give you a fresh screen to work on. Open will let you go and open any of the pre-made, or not pre-made, but stuff, basically layouts that people have created and saved to the cloud, or that you've saved yourself. The blue ones here are ones that you've saved on your local machine. So I'm gonna just open up my Carnegie Gasada Alpha EX layout here just to kind of show you a few of the controls. So first of all, I do not want real size. I was experimenting with that earlier, but so if you use your like on my laptop, it's two fingers, like basically the scrolling motion, it'll zoom in and out. If you hold down shift and click drag, you can pan the panel around, and you don't have to actually click on the panel to do that. You just uh, click anywhere and you'll pan it around. So the other things you can do are, if I click add, I can go in here and it'll give me all kinds of different things. Like I can put 24 millimeter buttons, 30 millimeter buttons, 28 millimeter buttons, keyboard buttons, um, various sizes of holes, and you can scroll over. And then you've got your holes for joystick mounts, like your 24 millimeter or 35 millimeter hole, like you'd have for a K lever. So there you have that. At any time, if you want to get out of a mode, you just hit escape and it'll get you out of that mode. Then you can click on any one of these elements, and when you do, it'll open up a menu for it. And in this menu, you can either precisely change values on these things' positions. Like for instance, I could say put that at 250x and 100y, and it'll do that. You can change its origin values and its anchor values, which we'll get into in a future video. This just tells it where it's originating from on the panel, and where the 0, 0 on the Cartesian coordinate plane inside the component, where that is. Um, Individual components like this all have their coordinate set at the middle of the object, but when you have complex objects like basically a bunch of buttons grouped together, for instance, those will always default to having the upper left corner of them be the 0, 0, and you can change it using this. And of course, there's a bunch of quick alignment tools down here. You can use to quick align things. Like if I want to put this button dead center, I can just click center both and it'll put it in the center of the panel. And then, of course, the other fun thing, let me show you this menu over here before I move on. So over here, you can change things like the width and height of the panel, the corner radius, so that you can make the corners curved. You can import an SVG of the panel. That's still very experimental, and it requires special formatting on the SVG to be able to do that. You can add artwork. That's a little buggy at the moment too. But you also see a list of all of the different pieces that you have here, all organized by what they are. So I'm actually just going to go through and delete all of those buttons I put on here to show you the next feature. let's get rid of that too. So if you can also import various things. So for instance, this Konami Hyper Stick I just made, I can take that, I can drag it over here. I can go in and import, let's say I want a K lever. So I can take that and I can put it where I want it. I can use the arrow keys to nudge it around. But what I prefer to do is I just center it in the middle and then I'll move it out some distance from the center. So in my case, I usually do like 75 or 80. So let's try 80. Then I do the same thing with this. I just center it and then I move it out negative 80 because that's going back the other direction. And then usually I'll kick it up a few in the Y in the negative direction just to get it up a little bit so that my wrists aren't resting right on the edge of the panel. So there, now I have a right button bank and a K lever here, and they're both equally spaced out from the center of the panel. Of course, I could also go an extra step and I could change my, and this will kind of demonstrate what the anchor point is. So I'm going to go ahead and leave the origin at the middle of the panel like I was talking about earlier, but I'll change my X anchor on this side to 0. And then I'll change my X anchor on this guy to 1. Because that's essentially going to make this side the origin on the X axis for that one. And it's going to make the left side here the anchor point for this one. So then I'm going to center both again. Actually, that messed it up. My bad. Let me change the anchor back to 0. There. So as you can see now, the left side of the button bank is like running right down the middle of the thing. And then I'm going to do the same thing with this. I'm going to center it and then I'm going to change its anchor back to 1. So now you can see that they're kind of butted up against each other. So I'm going to move this one over, let's say 50. Oop, that's a way too far. 40 maybe, 30, 25. And then we'll make this one negative 25. So there, now they're both equally, they're both equidistant from the center of the panel. But this time it's not coming from the middle, it's coming from the right side and the left side here. It all depends on how you want it spaced. The point is, though, is that you have that type of precision here. And then, of course, let's say that you wanted to take this and you wanted to rotate it. Let's say that I wanted to rotate this at a 12.5 degree angle. That's not quite what I had in mind. I wanted it the other way. There you go. So now it's rotated. And then, of course, I can still nudge it around with my arrow keys and put it where I want it. Yeah, there you go. So yeah, then of course the next thing that you would do is if you wanted to save this, first you'd want to give it a name, because unfortunately the way it works right now is stuff doesn't overwrite other things. It creates new entries every time. So you'd want to give this a name like Hyperstick, for instance, angled, and then save. And then, of course, panel design is what I'm working with here because I create a panel design. I would then click Save Cloud, and then you note that the URL changes and gives you a new URL. And you can now share that with people or, whatever, get input, have other people come and workshop your stick with you. And then if you want to get an SVG of that, you can click Export. And you can either click Save SVG, and it'll give you this SVG, which will be real size. You can bring it into your cutting software, or you could bring it into a 3D modeling software and use it to extrude a panel to print or whatever. And then, of course, if you're doing things manually, you can check the drilling guide box there, and then that will give you a drilling guide to where you can actually just drill a pilot hole at the middle of each of these cross lines here, and then use your hole saw to cut your holes out manually if you so choose. A few of the other things to talk about here. So these buttons at the bottom, some of them are self-explanatory. Like you can zoom in and out with those if you don't prefer to use this. And actually, that's interesting. It's messing with the line that I draw around my. Anyway, that's a bug. I'll have to fix that. Anyway, point being, you can zoom in and out with that, or you can use the mouse, the scroll. And then, of course, the other thing is you can also lock things down while you're working. So, for instance, if you don't want to zoom, you can lock zoom, and now scrolling won't work. And I don't think, clicking that button will still work. So there's another bug. Scroll will make it so that you can't move it around. So right now I'm holding down shift and clicking. If I unlock that, I can do that again. And then of course the other one is edit lock. So now I can click on these things and I can't move stuff around by clicking it. But once I turn that off, I can. It just makes it a little bit easier to handle. The other thing you can do is the transparent mode here. If you put artwork on it and you want to see, like, kind of see through it and see where you're trying to make it line up on the artwork, you can turn that on and off. Other than that, there's an options screen, and this is where you can do what I call screen calibration, so that you can look and see what things look like in real size. So like if you have a big monitor, for instance, by doing this calibration, you can actually put your hands on your monitor and see if the buttons on the panel line up the way that you want them with your real hand. And if you have a tablet, like an iPad or something, you can actually push the buttons and see them light up and stuff to kind of get a feel for like where they would be. And in another version of this that we're working on, there's also the ability to connect it as a virtual leverless fight stick as well. But that's about it. The next video will be on how to create custom components and import them like we were doing with these others.